Hello and welcome to today's parental engagement session for primary science. My name is Lewis Miller and I'm the primary science coordinator here at WSO. Today's session is all about tips and tricks and ideas to be able to support your child with you in science at home. So without anything further, let's get involved. Thank you for joining this WSO parental engagement of science at home. This session will look at how to support your child to develop a scientific mind. The session overviews and aims are understanding some of the misconceptions children see regarding science and how we can help address them. Also, we'll be looking at some tips, tricks and resources to make science fun during your home life. As discussed, the overview for this session will be addressing science misconceptions, what is science at WSO, using scientific post-it planning boards for home science projects, and looking at different ideas we can use for science at home. First section we'll be looking at are roadblocks of science or misconceptions of students. These are called roadblocks because sometimes these are barriers that students see to be able to prevent them from moving further along their journey of understanding and learning in science. The first misconception we're going to be talking about is the misconception that science is just a collection of facts. We understand that from a student's point of view, science may be taken as just a bunch of facts, but at WSO, science is much more than that. Science is a body of knowledge that can be learned from textbooks, but also the processes that we have within WSO. Science is an exciting and dynamic process to discover the world around us and building knowledge on that powerful and coherent framework. The second misconception we find with our students is that they believe science is complete. This means that science is no longer discovering new and exciting things, but somebody somewhere has already done it before, which is completely untrue, as we know, and that the natural world has still so much to offer and be discovered. Allowing this idea with our students can re-engage their excitement and their passion for science. The third misconception that we find with students is that they believe there is a single scientific method that all scientists must follow. We now know that this is simply untrue, but the rigid scientific method from the days gone by where we were in the science classroom and we all had to write out the exact same procedure simply is no longer the case. We understand that science is an organic, moving process, and we encourage our students to be able to think and follow along these principles instead of the rigid, linear scientific method of the past. The fourth misconception that we come across is that science is purely an analytical subject and does not involve any creativity. This is simply untrue. Maybe because in the past we've used very rigid scientific methods that are very linear and allow for limited creativity. Hopefully some of the resources you'll see today will show how we can encourage creativity and problem solving and thinking about new ways of testing different ideas. Another misconception we find with our students is that scientific ideas are absolute and unchanging. Maybe it's because textbooks have historically not changed much from year and year, and it's true that there are some scientific principles that are so well established that they won't change. But that's not true for all of them. Take our current situation. Without scientific ideas moving on, some of the vaccines that we have now would not be able to be made. We need our students to understand that scientific ideas are always there to be challenged. Another misconception that we do find within students is that the idea of science is boring. That might be the case if you're exclusively memorizing facts and figures from websites or from textbooks. But we need to challenge that. Science is not boring if you allow students to have creativity and solve problems to challenges that you set them. Science is all about creative thinking and problem solving, not reading facts and figures from textbooks and websites. Another misconception that we find within science is that science isn't important in my life. Sometimes students see science as scientists working in a laboratory millions of miles away with very expensive equipment and nothing really to do with them, whereas they couldn't be more wrong. Everything we do in our lives revolve around science, and it's about exposing them and allowing them to see that everything we do we can question with science. The final misconception that I want to talk about today is probably the most important, and it's the idea from a student that I'm not good at science, which is simply untrue. Some students do find science class difficult, but this doesn't mean that you are not good at science. All this really means is that you haven't yet found the part of science that clicks with your interest or talent. Maybe you're a budding sportsman. All of the sports movements link directly to science, and it's just about understanding how we can link science to those interests of our students or your children. And this is the most important thing. What I'm going to do for the remainder of this session is I'm going to talk through all of the different concepts in the context of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Hopefully, the idea is that we will be able to see how we can use anything to be able to link with science at home, and how you can use simple books such as Goldilocks and the Three Bears to spur on imagination, creativity, and problem solving in a scientific way with your children. The first tip we will be looking at today is Post-it planning boards. Now there's a link available in the YouTube description. Please click on that link and it'll take you to a website where you will be able to find these. We will be discussing what these are, how we use them, when we should use them, and how do they help my child understand science. Hopefully, using the context of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, you'll be able to see how we can use these in any situation that we choose. To access this planning board, please click on the link below in the YouTube description. The very first page you'll find is some tips and tricks on how to use the planning board, and then once you click on the page, you will get access to the planning board. You can either print this out and use it as a piece of paper, or open it up on your iPad and use your Apple Pencil to scribe like I am here. So sticking with the theme of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, I was reading this with my son last night, and his major focus was, of course, the porridge. So using this planning board to be able to construct a question and an investigation into what makes the perfect porridge. So looking at the first section, it says we could change, and there are 6 little boxes. These 6 little boxes represent the variables, things that we could change around to make the perfect porridge. Now it's really important that we discuss and have this conversation with our children to be able to get them to help fill it out. My example for the perfect porridge, I was discussing with my son what would make the perfect porridge, and he's seen me make porridge before, so he knows that there was milk, honey and oats that go into our porridge. So we were talking about if I change the amount of milk, that might make a difference to the taste. Maybe the type of milk, low fat, full fat, or the amount of honey, or the type of honey, the amount of oats, or the type of oats, all of which could make a difference to my porridge. The second section here is what we could measure. Now, if I was thinking about porridge and what I could measure for porridge, I could measure the consistency of the porridge, the temperature of the porridge, or the taste of the porridge, for me to look at the perfect porridge and running off the Three Bears theme. I've decided we will measure taste, and we are going to change the amount of honey. Will this make a difference to the perfect porridge? The next section, it says we will keep the same. This is understanding the idea of fair testing. All of the other variables that I could have changed, These need to be kept the same, otherwise it is no longer a fair test because I am changing two variables. This allows the students to be able to understand what variables are and the idea of fair testing. Now, the beautiful thing about this planning board is that you can use this planning board in any context. At the moment, we're looking at porridge, but it could quite easily be looking at gardening or different types of ideas about science units that are coming up. And we have a list at the end of this presentation to be able to help you with that. So in this final section of the first page, you will see when I change in a box and what will happen to in a box. Inside the boxes are the two variables, the dependent and independent variable about amount of honey, what I am going to change, and what will happen to the taste, what I am measuring. The Y section requires our scientific reasoning. At WSO, we use a if then because idea for a hypothesis. So when I asked my son with the amount of honey and the taste, if I add more honey, then it will taste good because honey is nice. Now this shows, even though he is in FS, this shows that he is linking two concepts. He understands that honey is nice and that if I add more honey, then it will make it nicer. Don't forget that when we use this if, then, and because hypothesis method. Moving on to the second page, this is where we obtain evidence and we write down our results. So what I am changing is the honey and what I am measuring is the taste. Here I put 1 spoonful into one batch of porridge, 2 spoonfuls into a second batch of porridge, and 3 spoonfuls in a third batch of porridge. And then I asked my son how it tastes. The first one was yuck, the second one was okay, the third one simply replied, nice. So here we can see that my observations are directly linked to what I am changing. There is a second page that you can go into a little bit more detail if you wish with repeated results. On the final page, it is considering and evaluating evidence. So what we were measuring, not honey, it was the taste. And what we changed was the honey. And here I can create a simple graph to be able to represent my results to show how the taste changed with the amount of honey was added. Don't forget, this is just a simple way of being able to describe how to use this board using porridge. This planning sheet can be used for any home investigation at all. So here you can see a simple 1 was yuck, 2 was okay, 3 was nice. So when we change the amount of honey, what happened to the taste? We can then go on to describe the pattern. It got nicer, was my son's result. And then we're explaining the pattern as I added more honey. And was his prediction correct? Yes. In what ways could we improve what we did? Well, we were looking at actually what could we do next. And then my son went on to say, well, we could change the type of honey that we added. So we've discovered that 3 spoonfuls of honey made it the nicest. Now, moving our investigation further on, we could look at changing the type of honey. So I'm adding 3 spoonfuls each time. And now I'm going to change the type of honey. And yet we can go on and progress this investigation further. In what ways we could improve? He said that we could ask more people to see how they felt and if they liked it just as much. We are now bringing ourselves onto a Science at WSO model. This is the flow diagram that I was talking about earlier, and I will talk you through this flow diagram now. This is so that you gain an understanding of what science is truly about at WSO and all the different elements that we use within our science investigations. A science investigation has multiple parts, such as exploration and discovery, then that links into testing ideas, community analysis and feedback, and the benefit and outcomes of our investigations. So let's delve into testing ideas. Sticking with our theme of Goldilocks and the porridge, we would put through an hypothesis, which was the more honey that I added, the sweeter the porridge would get and the better it would taste. We would then look at the expected results and our actual results. This would then in turn support a hypothesis or oppose the hypothesis and inspire us to revise our hypothesis. When doing this at home, please think about these elements when discussing an investigation at home. You could be doing the porridge the same, or any cooking element. Maybe you could move it on to gardening. If I was to plant my tomato plant in this region, would it grow better or not? And what are the expected results, the actual results you get, and how then does that inform where you plant your tomato plant? The elements of this testing ideas concept can be used in any scientific investigation that you could do at home or in school. Now be looking at exploration and discovery. This is where we're making the observations, asking questions, sharing data and analysis, finding inspiration, exploring the literature. So the observations that we were making were how good it tastes. Please make sure that your child asks plenty of questions about the investigation. They share their ideas. Maybe they can share it with the family members. Finding inspiration. Maybe it could be from the book, like the Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and exploring the literature. What do we know about honey? Are there cookbooks that might include this? Please think about all of these elements when discussing your science investigations at home. Now we come to the community analysis and feedback. Feedback and peer review, replication, discussion with colleagues, and publication. Now these elements are for science at school, but we can easily transfer them to be able to use at home. Feedback and peer review, this could be feedback from family members. This is what I found out. What do you think? Replication, can you copy exactly the investigation that we've done before? Discussion with family members, and publication. Maybe that they've researched so much that this porridge can now go into the family cookbook and be there forever for everyone to see. And finally, we look at the benefits and outcomes. We will mostly be focusing on building knowledge, satisfying curiosity, and solving everyday problems. We've solved the age-old problem, what makes the best porridge? We've satisfied the curiosity of your child by being able to perform this investigation, and we've built knowledge. They understand the scientific investigation process a lot further, and also have built on their understanding of honey. Finally, we have prepared a list of units of the primary science program at WSO. These include animals including humans, so this is any aspect of biology that links into animals or humans. We could be looking at the circulatory system and how the heart increases when we do exercise, and we can do an investigation at home around that. We have seasonal changes, which looks at weather patterns and the different seasons that we get. We could do a comparison from the home country to the UAE, and what are the different seasonal changes in comparison. We have many units on plants at WSO, and this ranges from the different types of plants and how they grow in different areas to the features of the plants, including the roots, stem, leaves, and flowers. We look at materials and how different materials are used for different purposes. Maybe we could do an exploration and an investigation at home regarding what is the best sleeve to put around my ice cream tub so it doesn't melt. We do units surrounding forces, and this includes air and water resistance as well as gravity. Maybe we could do an investigation at home to build the best boat and take it down to the local swimming pool to test out. We look at all different aspects of space and our solar system. A huge link to the UAE at the moment with the Mars rover. We also look at living things in their habitats, and this is all about how different animals are suited to different habitats. Maybe we could do a bug hotel comparison. Could you build 2 different bug hotels, and which one would attract the most bugs and why? We also look at light and angles of reflection and refraction. Maybe we could build our own periscope. Which type of periscope is the best? Is shorter or longer? Does it make a difference? Understanding states of matter is probably my favorite unit. This can directly link to all of your cooking, and we can discuss evaporation and condensation. Does water evaporate the same rate as milk or other liquids? And maybe this is an investigation we could do at home. We have separated materials, looking at filtration and sieving. Is there any way in which we can filter dirty water to make it clean water using natural water filters? Something OL has looked at very closely this year. And finally, we look at sound. Maybe an investigation at home where we can have different bottles filled with different amounts of water and why they make different sounds. That brings us to the end of our parental engagement. I hope you enjoyed and found some of the tips and tricks useful. If you are still looking for further ideas, I will put a website in the description below on the YouTube channel, and please click that. It is called Mystery Science, and they have some amazing ideas for investigations to be done at home. Thank you very much, and thanks for watching.